Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn Pierce, and I'd like to read you my favourite inspirational quote by me. The worst thing you can do is focus on negativity. It won't spare you from the cage of death, the pain of disease, the cruelty of time, the cold shell of human nature, or the eventual loss of everything you've ever held dear. Whatever you do, don't focus on that.
Hi, welcome to
the countdown to the release of Pokémon Scarlet and Violet.
So, continuing from the completely downer ending of yesterday's story, it's time to talk about another shiny. But this is one I actually caught. I played a lot of Pokémon Sapphire version when Ruby and Sapphire were the latest games. But, of course, like any game, I eventually got tired of it and needed a break. I didn't fall off all at once. Even once the DS came, my Sapphire cartridge was my most played in the system's bottom slot. But eventually I did fall off completely from Pokémon. When Pearl and Diamond came out, it was to little fanfare for me, but I was well aware of their existence right when they came out because I saw everyone playing them around me. Well, eventually I did get on board with Gen 4, but how and why that happened is another story for another time. The night I opened the case for my new Pearl version game, I was definitely excited to try it out though. Once I got through the very beginning of the game and I had my starter Piplup, it felt like time hadn't passed at all. This did not feel stale and old like I'd predicted. This was a brand new start, just me raising up a level 5 Piplup with no battle tower, competitive play, or national Pokedex in sight. To just have to worry about getting 8 gym badges and nothing else felt like a weight off my shoulders. As is tradition, I usually take my time more on my first run of these games, so thankfully I didn't use up all of my Pokeballs and just rush through things without buying more. Or maybe I didn't use all of my Pokeballs and didn't have to buy more. Whatever happened with my balls didn't matter. I don't remember. But what I do remember is what happened on my way to the first gym. I had completed everything early game, battled my rival east of Jubilife City, and was heading into the tunnel connecting the route to Oreburgh City. This is a tiny little cavern, at least the main passage is, but it still is a cave area with wild Pokemon, and a few trainers. Anyways, I was not halfway through this tunnel when a wild, shiny Geodude appeared. This Geodude was a bright orangish yellowish gold, and while back in Sapphire version, my encounter with Wishmer had left me in complete confusion. This time I knew exactly what I was dealing with. Thankfully, Geodude is very resilient to a lot of early game attacks, so I was able to get its health down. I had at least a few Pokeballs on hand, and I would have been pretty sad if I didn't get this one. It was just an early game Geodude, and I managed to catch it. That's right, before even the first gym, on my first playthrough ever of Pearl version, I had a shiny Pokemon. I took this Pokemon with me through the whole game, evolving it into Graveler. I also miraculously managed to evolve that into Golem, despite the fact that when trading a shiny Pokemon to someone else, more or less someone that's not an adult, the temptation to not trade back is very, very strong. But nonetheless, I had a shiny Golem with me throughout my entire time I spent on my first Pokemon Pearl save file. So, where is this Golem and why can't I show it? Well, that's the sad part of the story. So a few years later when Platinum came out, and that game became my new main save file for everything, I had the idea to use my Pearl game for resources that are hard to come by, for example, Master Balls. So in order to get more of these items, I'd have to restart my entire game. I meticulously traded all of my important Pearl Pokemon over to Platinum, except Golem. In a complete freak accident, Golem happened to be the one Pokemon that didn't make it before the save file was deleted. And the worst part was that it was my fault. I had a Golem of almost the exact same level in my game that was non-shiny, and because of how I sorted my Pokemon, That one had happened to be the one I pulled into Platinum instead. So, how upset was I over this? Well, not that much. Pokemon wasn't exactly a passion of mine growing up. They were just games I loved playing at night when I had nothing else to do. I did do multiplayer stuff with friends from time to time, but most of my time was spent in single player. I wasn't exactly a Pokemon nerd, and didn't care that much about collecting or shinies, EVs, and IVs, or anything of that sort. Yeah, I was pissed at myself, but this wasn't a huge deal to me either. Ironically, it wasn't until I grew up that this became a big deal. Years have passed, and shiny hunting has become an increasingly popular hobby for Pokemon players. If I was able to show my first ever shiny Pokemon with a catch date from before the year 2010, that would be a really cool thing to look at. But hey, I still have the memories of it. I can still talk about it now, and the story itself is probably more interesting anyway, so it's a win for me regardless. Stay tuned. We're approaching the halfway point to the release of Scarlet and Violet, and things are about to get interesting. See you tomorrow when I talk about the time I bought a new Pokemon game with my own money when it came out and then never played it. Good night.